When you are looking for answers, the best way to look for them is within yourself. And writing has been such a therapeutic exercise for me. I have been journaling since I was a little girl because it helps me take out big and small feelings that I couldn't express to others. And as an adult, it helps me sort through my thoughts, my dreams, my experiences. And I highly recommend writing for anyone that wants to add a new form of self love into their life. My guest today is Camille Campin-Adams, and she is a best-selling author and a book coach that helps you launch the book inside of you. This conversation brought back so much excitement to starting my book again because if you don't know the story, a little over a year ago, I started writing a book that was based on styling and life because there's a lot of lessons that are intertwined. And I dedicated writing hours every night for months. And then I hit a roadblock. The stories that started pouring out of me were from a difficult time in my life. And I found that it was something I had to overcome and just take out. But those stories weren't something I really wanted as part of the book. And I couldn't steer it back for some reason. I couldn't get back into the book again. So I decided to take a break. And I have reached out to Camille again to talk about how to overcome burnout, when to pivot in life and business, and the best ways to stay accountable in the writing process. So, this episode is for you, whether you want to become an author or write your own healing journey through a book and take everything out. This episode is definitely for you. I am so excited to have you here today. We're laughing because this is our second round of starting. We have so much to talk about because it's been months since we last connected. We connected probably close to a year ago when she was launching her online course because I need help with my book. And you came in the picture, and I was like, oh my gosh, you're like a fairy godmother that you could help with this. So, yeah, it's been a while. And so that's why we're laughing. Like, there's just so much that has happened.
So much has happened. Yeah. So you connected with me back when I was launching Author Legacy Project for the very, very first time, a group coaching hybrid program for authors who want to write their books. And that was back in December of 2021. And it's just crazy how it's already October, almost November, and it doesn't feel like it's been a year, but it has been. And actually, Author Legacy Project is no longer like I'm actually closing the doors at the end of this year. So it was a 1-year thing, and I'm going back to working exclusively one-on-one with authors.
One-on-one, I think. I mean, I have my online course that I've been doing. I think it's been 2 years now, but there is just so much more. I don't know. There's so much more depth in the one-on-one. I feel like if people want to hire you, like just put up the price and just have, that connection with them where they actually really get everything they need. They have that one-on-one support. It's just really nice, I think.
I agree. And what's interesting is that when I first started book coaching, I did it as a one-on-one service, and it was a much easier sell. People see the value in one-on-one coaching. And I know personally, I've bought so many courses, I've done so many things. And where I really get the most benefit is in one-on-one coaching. And I know that about myself. So when I see group programs or I see courses, I'm less inclined to jump and join them because I know that my learning style, I need that one-on-one. I need that accountability. And I think most people truthfully need it too.
Mm-hmm.
And especially when you're writing a book, right? Like writing a book is a very, very personal thing. And there are aspects to the group coaching that worked, right? Like the group accountability and maybe some group training lessons or group Q&As could be really good. But overall, I'm just going back to one-on-one because to be honest, it's easier to convince someone of doing a one-on-one than a group program. People would much rather just join a one-on-one that's twice the price than another group, and I just know that the clients are getting more out of it and much more out of the experience when they're working one-on-one with me. So that's a big, in 10 months, that's where we're at.
That's a really important thing to come across. So, as you're going through anything in life, it's like you have to try new things to see if it works. I recently did this with my social media. I hired somebody to help, and I've done this a few times. My work is like my schedule. If you look at it, every hour is scheduled. Like I have a client or I have a Zoom meeting or I have to prepare for something or shop for someone online. Like every hour is like scheduled. I see so many Instagram reels and TikToks at night, not during the day, but I'm like, how do people like keep up with this? Because when I try, it like takes me hours to do it. So I hired someone to help me who did such a wonderful job. She came in, she recorded videos every 2 weeks, but I was just noticing, I'm like, why am I doing this? It's not working for my business. I've never, like my business, people find me online. It's by referral. I work with a lot of different companies too. I was like, I've never had somebody like message me on Instagram saying, I want to hire you because I saw you do a funny video, you know? So I've also had to come to the realization of like, I just have to let that part go. And I'm doing it for fun on the side. Some people really enjoy seeing everything, but I'm like, it's putting in that time and money. Having a social media person is actually quite expensive. It's worth it if it is helping your business, but I've been doing it 6 months. Nothing's come from it. So,
Yeah.
but
Well, and I think that's a really great segue too, because we're talking about trying to do like all the things in our business and in our life. And you really do have to give yourself a chance to assess what is working and what's not working, because we think we have to do all the things. We think that we have to be doing TikToks because everyone else is doing TikToks and everyone says it works. And then you have to do the Instagram lives and you have to, do a webinar and then you have to do a masterclass. And it's like, oh my gosh. So we start to get really burnt out, especially as entrepreneurs, right? And we're just really like, we're chasing our tails and we're not focusing our energies where they really need to be focused. And I think that was a really hard realization for me this year, because when I started working with my sales coach one-on-one and I launched my one-on-one coaching for book coaching, things went really well. And then I got like trigger happy with all the things, right? And I'm like, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this. And things stopped working for me. And I started getting more stressed out, more overwhelmed. I was working more than ever and I was making less money.
yeah.
And that was a really hard pill to swallow, right? Like you feel like working harder is going to get you more results. But a lot of times it's the opposite. It's really being strategic and caring about where you're putting your energies and just being really intentional about where you're putting your energies. So I think that's a great segue, because that's why you reached out to me, is when I sent that email about being burnt out and feeling like you're just like going all the time.
Yeah, and I think, and another reason, obviously, we want to connect it to book writing, which it connects so well. But what my clients have been noticing, what I've been feeling and noticing, that's why when you sent that email, you have lovely emails, by the way, they have beautiful stories. But when you sent that one, I was like, a lot of people I know are going through this because we were in COVID, and it's so funny during COVID. It's like everybody, not everybody, this, I cannot say everybody, but a lot of people started to find like more peace with themselves, like being able to take things slow. And then maybe 6 months after, a year after, they were still adopting that and felt really good with it. And this year, it's like boom, everything. Like people wanted to start doing everything again and all at once, and handfuls of all the events that they could go to and all the new things that they could add to their plate. And I feel like a lot of people are feeling burnout, like, okay, I was going slow and now finally I'm out again, but I decided to just like grab everything at once. So now what? You know? So talking about what you can do. And that's kind of my first question. Like when you started feeling this, a lot of people go through different feelings and things that they do, sometimes bad habits. What did you do at that moment to reflect and be able to stop yourself and figure out a new path to take?
So one of the modalities that I use is journaling. I think journaling, a lot of people don't really realize. There are a lot of people that realize and a lot of people that don't, right? That how powerful writing is. And that's around the time that I started the journaling collective. And so, as much as yes, my focus is on book coaching, I've always had a special place in my heart for writing, right? And I've always said, and this is one of the things I told Michelle, my sales coach, I was like, Michelle, I just don't want to be the person who pushes and pushes and pushes for someone to just write a book for the purposes of making money. Like that's great. There are tons and tons of coaches out there that help you make money with your book as a business owner. And I think that that's needed in the marketplace. But there's also an incredible need for writing to heal and writing to better understand yourself, writing for self-discovery, self-empowerment, self-mastery, right? And so when you are feeling burnt out, when you are feeling overwhelmed, one of the best things you can do to reflect is to write, to just write it all out in a journal and sit with it. And there are a lot of different ways that you can journal. You can literally just come to your writing space. And I really do suggest that you have a designated writing space and a designated journal, because it'll make you, it's like you said, we want to create healthy habits. And by having that space that you go to write, you're already triggering a habit, a new habit, right? And if you have a notebook, it kind of excites you to use that notebook to write. So establishing those healthy habits, and then coming to the space where maybe you truly just sit and you center yourself. You might do a meditation, a short meditation right beforehand, and you just can put your hand on your heart and just ask yourself, what is my soul yearning for right now? What do I need at this point in time? And sitting with it, and then using that and what flows with it to write it, and just write it and get it out, right? Almost like you're writing from your subconscious and not so much what you're pushing forth. And then after you finish writing, it's a really great opportunity then to go back and read it and reflect, because sometimes I really do believe that writing comes from a place that you can't really identify. It's like this, it's coming from the deep depths of your soul, or like a lot of people will say, it comes from our creator or from God. Like it's this inspiration that flows through us. It's not really our physical body that's pushing through these thoughts. So it's this incredible phenomenon. A lot of writers will go back to their writing and be like, I wrote that? Like, when did I write that? That's insane, right? And this is what happens a lot with journaling. So I actually launched quickly after I launched Sanctuary, which is, I think I launched it in August. It's a membership for women who want to use journaling and meditation to really tap into who they are and become the best versions of themselves without overwhelm, right? Without feeling like they're always pushing and running and going and going and going, and giving back to themselves. Because we as women, we're people pleasers, and we like to give of ourselves so much that we really do burn ourselves out, and we don't take care of us, and we need to refocus that energy sometimes back towards our own needs.
I love that you share about the journaling aspect of helping you through burnout. I have used journaling. I'm a writer. I'm obviously, like, I haven't written a book, but I enjoy writing, and it is a way that I express. My love language is words of affirmation. So growing up, I journaled since I was like 12, 10 years old. Even I think 9, I have a journal that I created, and I saved a lot of those. The only ones I burnt was a really hard time of my life. I was like, if I pass away, I do not want anybody reading this. I don't want anyone to know what truly happened. It was a very hard time, but journaling is such a great way of sharing your feelings. I read things recently of what I wrote 3 or 4 years ago, and I'm somebody who I have visions. Like, I don't talk about them out loud so much, but when I'm writing, these visions come out. And I was reading things I had envisioned a few years ago, and a lot of it has already happened. And when I was also trying to write the book, I started trying to write the book, I think a year and a half. No, it was before speaking to you. I had gone through a few months on my own trying to write. So maybe it was around 2 years ago, I started writing the book. And what happened with me, the big problem I came into is when I was writing the book, so many stories came out that were weaving out of me. And I was like, that's not the direction I wanted to take. It became very personal, where when I was writing the book, I wanted it to be related to my business too. I didn't want it to have to be with the story of my life. So it became such a huge conflict for me when I was sitting down and I was trying to write, like, how to find your style. And then I'd like start writing about my life instead of fashion. And so I want to know, like, if you have multiple stories and something like that happens, and I'm sure you've encountered that with clients, like they're trying to write one thing and then another thing just keeps coming out, seeping out of them. How do you decide what you write first? Like, do you like force yourself to go in the other direction that you want to go to, or do you write something that maybe isn't going to help? Like you mentioned, sometimes you just have to write to heal. Maybe I just have to write to heal first and then write my story. I just don't even know.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways that you can look at that experience that you're having. So without knowing what was coming out of you and not knowing exactly the outline of the book, for example, it's hard to say if what you are writing is still completely relevant to that book that you were trying to write. Because what I work with authors on a lot is either memoir or a hybrid. Like there are a lot of business books out there, but there are a lot that are actually hybrid models where you are sharing your story, right? That is a big part of the story, but it is a business book, right? The point is still for people to learn something about your business, learn a new skill, learn about fashion, but they're learning it through your lens, right? And through your story. So you're tying that story back in to the lesson, right? And that is one way where it might still flow. Like what was flowing out of you and what was wanting to come out of you might still be relevant. Now, a way that you can avoid kind of going astray is planning the book in advance. And that's one thing that I do first with clients. It doesn't matter, like in your case, you've already started writing. We would still go back to the book activation and we would start planning the book, because when you have a clear outline, you know exactly what to write when you sit down to write. And you don't really let your imagination steer you, because you have like you're coming to that writing time and to like with actually like a mission and a goal of like, okay, I need to write this. And there's a system that I use that kind of keeps you on track to help. But I will say that if you continue to have this other story and something else coming out of you, that is probably begging to be told first. And so you might actually have a memoir that needs to be shared before your business book is shared. It's just really hard for me to say without looking at the writing itself and coaching you through the process. But it is possible that you are yearning to share something else entirely before you can write that book about fashion, right? Mm-hmm. So really, I would say planning the book in advance is a huge part of it. Knowing exactly what the point of the book is, what is your goal with this book, having a strategic outline, and then going through this other outcome outline that I walk you through, which literally helps you identify, where someone is at the beginning of the chapter, where you're taking them to by the end of the chapter, and how it's going to lead into the following chapter. So there's like a methodology there that we use to keep you on track every time you sit down to write. But yeah, I mean, it's really writers, we're unique, and I can't stress that enough, right? And I do want to say this because you said, "Oh, I'm a writer, but I haven't written my book." And you know what? Writers, I would argue that we're all writers. And it's because it's part of being human. You can't be a human and not write unless you really are illiterate and you haven't been taught. But we've all been taught to communicate. It's all part of the human experience. And you would be hard pressed to find a person who doesn't write on a daily basis, whether they're writing text messages or emails or social media posts or writing a letter at work. We are all writing. And so it's time that we all appreciate that we are writers, regardless of what we were told in English when we were in high school and middle school, right? Because there's a lot of us that have been told, oh, you can't write. And we, our papers are crossed out and we're told how terrible it is. Like, don't let that deter you from writing, because that doesn't matter. That's a construct of what writing is supposed to be. But really, writing is a creative outlet, and creativity can look however you want it to look, right? Art is subjective. And a lot of people probably think Picasso's horrible, right? So my writing might not appeal to some people and vice versa, but that's not the point. That's almost entirely opposite of the point, right? Is that you are going to have a unique voice and you're going to turn some people off and you're going to draw some people in. And that's just part of the experience. And that's the beauty of it.
And with the coaching that you do, okay, so let's go back a step and let's say somebody has a book on their heart. What kind of book topics? And I know there's a lot, but let's just share some ideas because it might ignite something. It might spark something in someone. Like, what are a few ideas of things that people could write about?
Well, what I do with a lot of people when they first come to me, if they're a business owner and they're stuck, and a lot of times people do come to me because they have a desire to share their framework. So let's say that you have a framework that you or you walk a client through. It's very simple to take that framework and turn it into a book, right? Another example that I could give you is my parents came from Cuba and they left while Castro was taking over. It was a really traumatic time in their lives. And nobody in the family has documented that story. But I would hate to see, and a lot of people have already died, like the generations that came. I think my dad, there's very few people left that can still share their story. And when my dad came, he was a teenager. My mom came when she was 10. So the people I needed to have interviewed are already gone, right? So I feel compelled, and I say this to you, and I don't know that I'll ever get the story out because, again, all the things I'm trying to do, and when am I going to do this? But I feel super compelled to share that story because that's a legacy that I can leave my family for my own sake, right? Like the interview process, interviewing my family, getting to know the whole story from different perspectives and documenting that for myself, for my family, for my children, but also for the public, because there is an audience out there that wants to know more about what people went through back then, right? So sometimes it's really just a personal story or wanting to connect with your heritage and your lineage. And then other times you might have gone through something that feels very, very important for you to share with the world. Like maybe you went through a huge heroine's journey, or like a huge hero's journey, where really like you feel like the lessons that you came out learning could really, really impact the lives of other people. And you just feel compelled and you feel like an almost like a moral obligation to share it, right? Like there's I need to share this because it's been put on my heart for a reason. And I was listening to a talk by his name's escaping me. I can't think of it now, but I was listening to a talk about, writing from the soul, and Dr. Wayne Dyer. And I was like, why can't I think of his name? Dr. Wayne Dyer. And he talks about your book being inevitable. And I thought that was so interesting. And I actually wrote a post about this. And I think I don't know if I put it in my last email, but it's like, what if I told you that your desire to write is there because that book has to come out, or that story? Maybe you're writing short stories. Like you could be writing and submitting to journals. Like your goal might not be to write a book, right? But you still want to share that story in some capacity. That message and that story is inevitable. And it's going to come out because it's been called to come out. And it's just a matter of like, when are you going to take the action that you need to take to get that story out? Because it's already chosen you. It's almost like you're not choosing it, it's choosing you. And now it's just a matter of you taking it into your hands and making it happen. Because that's a really profound way to look at it. It's like, this is you writing from your soul. Right. So there's just so many different ways that someone can approach their writing. Very, very often you'll see people writing about their business and just their framework, because if you are a high ticket coach, right, you could very easily write a book that shares the framework, but people need the coaching. You could literally pour your entire method out. I actually just read a book from Clients and Community. These guys are making $500,000 per month using Facebook ads to grow their Facebook group to then sell into their almost $7,000 a month program. And they literally laid out their entire system, their entire framework in this book that they sell for $4.95. It's an ebook. Right? They sell it for $4.95, but guess what? It's a funnel. And how many people of those that buy that book do they end up converting into $7,000 clients?
Yep.
That's the beauty of it. Because you know what? It's one thing to know the strategy. It's another thing to have someone walk you through the process hand in hand. And that's what people pay the big money for.
Yeah, I love reading, and there's so many different styles I really enjoy. And that's where I think, like anything in life, even with style, you see so much and you're like, but what's me? How do I find my voice within all these voices that I admire and really like? And I like their tone. I like how humorous they are. I'm not funny. How am I gonna ever do, like, there's so many things that get confusing, almost like personal style. But just because you talked about that high ticket offer, I just wanted to share, it's so funny, it's right next to me. Um,
I
Ellen,
love that one. I
you
love
have
that
it?
one. Yes, I have the audio and the book.
Me too. Oh my gosh. So that is a great example that I got the audio and I was like, I am going to dissect this thing. And this guy, he's not doing it to like really make money. He doesn't need people to buy his book, but he's like, I want to help other people that are entrepreneurs like do their thing, follow their calling. That's the book that came to mind when you were sharing the process. But
I
I was
love
like, he's genius and he even has videos and all the things. So I love the creativity that nowadays different from what it used to be with writing, that you can create videos, you can have an online group that's reading it together and you just share more material as you go. Like there's so many ideas that come with book writing, and I think I get overwhelmed too of thinking like I want to just do it all, I want to do so much, but I know that the most important part is just like getting it on the computer, on paper, get the ideas out, because then I'm just not going to start.
Yeah.
Not going to start.
Well, and honestly, that's part of the reason why I had to go back to basics too with my clients, because I noticed that we would do editing sessions where they would submit their work and I would give them feedback, and it's really valuable. They love it. But the issue with that is that then they get stuck in the, oh, I'm editing this, or I want to revise this. And really what you need to do the first time is just get the messy draft out, because you can work with editors to clean it up later. And even the best writers say, I don't know if it was Stephen King, but someone said something about vomit on the typewriter in the morning, clean it up at noon. Like you just got to get it out of you. And vomiting sounds terrible, right? Like you can picture that. That's horrible. But that's what he meant. Like just vomit out the words, just get it all out, because you're suppressing all of that if you don't. So really the first step is to plan the book. The second step is to literally just get it out of your head. Like it doesn't matter how messy it is, just get it out, clean it up later, right? That's the next thing. You can do some self-editing, you can do some cleaning up of your own, some revisions of your own, and then you send it off to the editor. You'll work through a round or two, depending on how much work it needs. Sometimes 4 rounds. Hopefully that's not the case. And then, you're on to really amazing opportunities with getting it out there, selling it on a book funnel. You really don't have to do all the things the first time either, right? Like when you first launch your book, you could just start very simply. And then the key is relaunching it and constantly sharing about your book, right? It's not just one launch. You just get it out and you never talk about it again. You really have to be strategic about consistently using that book as a funnel to bring people back into your world.
I love that you bring that up. Because one of the questions that I had for you is if you aren't Insta famous, because now a lot of people that do really sell their books are already kind of like Insta famous, where they have a huge following. So then when they bring it up, they're like pre-order now, and they're already selling copies when it's not even out. So I think that's kind of the answer to the question, unless you have more to add to that. But how do you sell your book? And I know it's not you don't write a book to make money. It's really to share your message, but you still want people to know about it. So how do you do it when you're not Insta famous? I like that relaunching idea. That's awesome.
Yeah. So what's actually I'm so glad you asked this question, because when I was working with authors, I realized that a lot of them didn't have their author platforms already established. And you don't have to have a huge platform to sell a lot of books, right? But you do have to have something in place. So I actually launched a platform for authors to help. It's an all-in-one marketing solution. So entrepreneurs of all kinds can use it. I actually have all sorts of entrepreneurs using it right now, but I launched it with the idea of helping authors grow their author platform. So it does, it's a CRM, it has a sales pipeline, it helps you with email marketing, SMS text messages. You can build out your website, your funnels, all of it on there. And I really, my goal and part of the planning phase of the book is helping people start really thinking about how they're going to grow their author platform. And those are things that I help them figure out, because you don't have to be Insta famous, right? But you do have to have some sort of an audience primed and ready to buy your book when you go to launch it. Then there are a lot of different strategies, right? You can have a book launch team that helps you launch the book. And that's super recommended. Like it's highly recommended that you have your launch team in place. You get your advanced readers to actually read the book before it's published. They give you feedback, and then since they already read it, they go and they leave reviews on Amazon, which helps the algorithm on Amazon to get more eyes to your book. They'll kind of like start promoting your book a little bit more. And then you use those people to help promote your book, right? So if you have micro influencers, it's so hard to even say that word, micro influencers, right, are great people to help blow up businesses. I mean, they have literally blown up businesses overnight. So if you're strategic about who you send your book to and who you ask to help you promote your book, you can blow your business up without having a really large audience at all. And then having a really solid book funnel, because I always tell people you have to get people back on your list somehow. So I always encourage having some sort of a lead magnet or something inside of the book that brings the reader back into your world. Because if someone finds you on Amazon or through a micro influencer, well, how are you going to be able to engage with that person outside of that book? You want them on your email list. So that's why we've created, opt-in pages and book funnels and all sorts of fun things so that people can get into your world and you can develop and nurture that relationship with them. And hopefully, if you have an offer, you can sell them into whatever that offer might be.
I think that is so genius. As much as I love fashion, I really love marketing and business ideas. And now writing the book is kind of getting me more excited, knowing like, oh, I could play with other ideas within the book and outside the book. I love that.
Yeah,
That's really fun. Um, and have you written a book yet?
So what's interesting about that whole story, right, is like
Yeah.
I wrote a book in grad school, and this is why it's been so hard for me to, like, even as a book coach, to be so tied to this outcome of writing a book for money and for like the end result, because I spent 3 years getting my master's in creative writing and I wrote my memoir. And that was a really, really hard experience for me. I had an 18-month-old at home. I had a 3-year-old when I went back to grad school. So I had little kids. At the same time that I went back to grad school, I got 2 part-time jobs, working one at the Container Store, which you would appreciate, and 2 at, right, because I love the Container Store's closet organization stuff. And then I was working at the church. So I had a church job and I had a Container Store job and I was going to grad school and I had 2 little kids, 2 toddlers. And I managed to write my memoir through all of it. But when I finished grad school, I came out and I was like, I'm going to publish this book. I wrote up my book proposal. I started writing agent queries. I paid for a $5,000 or $6,000 program to help me sell more books. And guess what? I never published it. I never queried a single agent. And it was because I just felt like the story wasn't done. I felt like there was more to the story than what I had written. And I actually felt that the angle was completely different. And so I will say I have this big, big document that I could try to publish tomorrow if I wanted to, but it's not the book I want to publish. And I don't feel any pressure around publishing it. So, and actually I'll tell you a funny story there. When I graduated, I actually was top of my class. I was a graduate school speaker at commencement. There was like all this pressure around this idea that I was going to publish this book. My mother-in-law sends her Christmas letter every year with what's going on in everyone's life. And she told everyone that I was going to be publishing my book soon.
Oh,
that was in 2019.
oh my gosh.
And I was like, that is not her place. I was not happy about it. But whatever. I didn't say anything to her. I just kind of was like, well, we'll see. No pressure, right? So anyway, long story short is I have this story, and I actually sent it to someone that we know, Hannah, an editor, and she saw some of it and she's like, I really want to help you just clean this up and get it out. But I'm like, but I know that the angle of that, it does need some work. So I've kind of gone back and forth about whether I want to go back and finish that or whether I just want to quickly write a book about, I started writing another book about You're a Writer, Start Writing, which is essentially a little mini course I created, right? Because you can turn a little mini course into a quick ebook.
Yeah.
So I've been kind of going back and forth between those 2 things. And then I did participate in 2 anthologies. One, I published a couple years ago, and then another one is going to be coming out soon with Hannah and them, probably in 2023. So I can say I'm a published author. I can say that I'm a best-selling author. If you know anything about Amazon sales, right? Like, not that hard to become a best-selling author on Amazon these days. Thank you, Amazon. So it's very manageable to do. But yeah, so that's kind of my story, right? And 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 I'll be quite just very transparent with you. When I decided to get certified as a book coach, one of the things that they talk about in their series, because it's expensive to get certified, was like, oh, what if you don't want to write a book? Or what if you haven't written a book?
Mm-hmm.
Did a whole lesson on how it doesn't really matter if you have published your own book, how you can still be a really successful book coach, right? Because being a coach and being like the person doing it are two different skill sets.
Oh,
and so you can still be a really powerful coach without having 60, 70 books, right? There's a lot of coaches out there that will talk about how many books they've published, and it's great, but that's really not necessarily going to help the person across the finish line. You have to know how to coach the person to get there.
Yeah, no, I agree. And you have to be able to give results. Like that is different than doing something for yourself sometimes is different than doing it for other people and being able to hear them. Even as a stylist, like it's a lot of understanding other people, talking them through. And they sometimes end up finding their answers as we walk through the process and they start having their aha moment. So coaching is really helping already what's inside of them, what they might know and haven't talked about, just come out more. But we know how to do that in our fields. So I think that's a good point. I was just curious because I was wondering if you did write a book before and had it published, like what was your biggest roadblock? But we can even go with like a client that you've had. What was kind of like a big roadblock they had that they got to the other side and it was like, oh my gosh, they made it through?
Well, I would say that honestly, what comes up time and time again is the sales. It's really the sales of the book, because if you don't have your author platform set up, like I'll give you a really incredible example, right? So you would think something that you would think would be so easy to sell. The first anthology that I did had about 21 or 22 authors in it. We thought this was going to be a cakewalk to sell this book because there were 20 to 21 people with all their audiences involved, right? We were going to become USA Today, right? That's like not just Amazon, but all the other ones, because we had so many people. And one of the girls in the anthology had a huge following. Do you know how hard it was to sell those books? It was really challenging. They were asking us to reach out to family, essentially beg people. You don't want to put yourself in a position where you're begging people to buy your book, like texting your brother and hey, bro, can you buy my Female Entrepreneurs Playbook? Like the book about females and entrepreneurs. So this is why I stress so much the importance of having your book funnel and having your sales and launch strategy dialed in. And maybe even, like I said, using the micro influencers, because just taking for granted that putting out a couple social media posts about your book and sending a few emails is going to be enough. It's not. You really do have to be strategic around it. And the experience that we had with that, we got to the other side and we did sell some books and it was good, but you would have thought like we reached, I would say, our goals kind of, but you would have thought it would have been a much easier hill to climb than it was.
Yeah, that is so tough. That's always a hard part. I'm actually about to I'm about to record a podcast episode of how to thrive during failure. Because as an entrepreneur, people don't share their stories enough of like, and I call them fails because they're not necessarily fails. You learn so much. I have tried in 14 years of business, kind of like we talked about in the very beginning, hiring social media. I've done it 3 times in the past 5 years. Just did not work either of the times, but we go through a lot of things in our business or writing or whatever it is. And it's not necessarily a fail. It's just a great learning experience, because next time we go about it, we're like, okay, what are we going to change up? What are we going to do different? What did I learn about myself through it as well? But if you ever just stop, you don't end up getting anywhere. So you just got to keep going. You pick up and you find a different path and take another route.
Yep. And honestly, I don't believe in failure. Like I love that you're bringing that up, because I feel like every attempt that didn't work is just a learning experience, right? You're learning from that. I guess you could say, yeah, you fail if you fall and you don't learn from it, right? Like if you just keep making the same mistake and you just like run into the same, like, right. It's like, I think of my kids, they're always playing video games. Like, you know, like if you're like that little video game person that's just walking into a wall and doesn't ever stop walking into a wall, well then maybe, yeah, we have a failure issue. But if you learn to turn, oh, if I turn, there's an opening over here. Well, then you're going to find another strategy. You're going to find another way forward. And I do think that really as entrepreneurs and as people in general, like we just have to keep trying things. And the more you try, eventually you'll succeed. And really it only takes one success to really like the explosive growth, right? So it's like that, what's that? They have that little drawing of that guy digging for gold, and he's literally digging and digging, and how far he's gotten so far, and he turns around right as he's about to strike gold. You just don't want to ever give up because you're that close. It's like never fails. You're always just that close to achieving what you want to achieve when you turn around and you give up.
It's true. And for people that want to write a book that are listening, let's also talk about time frame. And I know for everyone it's different. I'm not going to lie. I have wanted to in the past year. I just thought to myself, I forget who I heard a podcast, but somebody said that when they write their book, they just take a long flight to I don't know where, and then they write on the way there, they write in the airport, and then they come back and then they write. I forget who said that, but I was like, I'm going to do that. It's an excuse to go to a different country and to just get my book done, just be in silence, no one with me. But realistically, and not for people also, because I know like celebrity writers, they can get shit out in like 6 months, but that's not realistic for the rest of us. So is it like 2, 5 years, or is it just kind of a different journey for everybody?
Okay, let me preface this by saying that when you have money, you have resources that a lot of people don't have, right? And like you said, these celebrity writers, and we're not talking about Stephen King and the people and like that are actually writing their books. We're talking about like a lot of these fly-by-night celebrities that all of a sudden have a book out. Sister, we know good and well that they did not write their book. Okay. So I just want to throw that out there because there's a lot of people that are putting their books out there, but they're using ghostwriters. And it is very, very different to have someone interview you and for them to write your book for you. Someone who is used to writing books. Maybe that ghostwriter's written 60 books. Like they know how to knock out a book really, really fast. Right. So there's a lot of people that are hiring ghostwriters for $50, $60, $70, $100, $150,000 to do it. And there's really nothing wrong with doing that, but I don't want people to get discouraged because what I hear all the time is, man, this person's written, another book, they just wrote a book. Now they're writing another one. And it's because they are celebrities and they are using ghostwriters. And honestly, you don't have to even be a celebrity you could go hire a ghostwriter right now if you had $100,000 to invest in that. So as far as you actually doing the writing yourself, it's going to vary person to person. Obviously, like you said, it depends on how much time you have to dedicate to your writing, how long the book is. Some books are 25,000 words. Some books are 100,000 words. Some people write really fast. Some people write pretty slow. So there's a lot of different factors. But if I was to give you like a roundabout, the kind of like the project plan that I use for my clients, right? I have them work through the book activation for about 3 weeks. Right. We're spending a solid 3 weeks planning out their book. There's a lot of different steps in that activation. It's not just like the outline. We're looking at who your ideal reader is. We're looking at, are your chapters templated? Can they be templated? What does that template look like? What are the main questions that you're going to be answering inside of the book? We do the outline and then we go into a deeper outline that really breaks down, like I said, there's a methodology there that really breaks down what's happening in each chapter even more. And then at the very end of the activation, we're writing a couple chapters. So it's almost like what you would create if you were to create a book proposal. It's very, very similar. It's not exactly like it, but it's similar to a book proposal. So we spent about 3 weeks on that. And then I like to say that you can write a chapter a week. If you can dedicate, I would say probably 4 to 5 hours a week. It really depends on your speed of writing. You can knock out a chapter a week. I really like for writers to write at least an hour a day. It just takes you some time to get into the flow. Like there's putting on some music, maybe putting on headphones, you use, binaural beats, and you really kind of like try to get into the trance where you're in that creative flow. That can take some time. And then once you're in the creative flow, you start going and you can write for hours and not realize how long you've been writing. So the best thing to do is to really try to set at least 2 hours aside so that you can get into that creative flow. And if you're doing that multiple times a week, you can knock out a chapter a week fairly quickly. And if your book is 10 chapters, you're looking at 10 weeks. Maybe add a week or two in case you kind of fall off or you get behind. So realistically, in 3 to 4 months, you should be able to have a crappy first draft, right? Like a shitty first draft. I try not to curse on podcasts because I like to listen to them with my kids. I'm not really a big cursor. Like I don't really curse a lot anyway, but with my kids, I'm like listening to podcasts and then I hear somebody drop F-bombs and I'm like, oh man, I can't even listen to this podcast now.
No.
But yeah, so it's like that crappy first draft that you're writing that is just not something you want to turn in. You don't want to publish it. But it's just going to be enough to get that first draft going and out. And then you can work on cleaning it up after.
And that definitely sounds manageable. I think what I found that got really difficult through it for me is I would start writing and then I would write, but it wouldn't connect to what I was writing to before. So then I'm like, oh, I have to reread what I wrote and kind of like be like, okay, where did I leave off? How can I get into like that part of where I was at? And that part took time. And I think that's what you're talking about, like finding yourself, like getting in the flow, but it's also like, where did I leave off? How do I continue with it? But yeah, that's definitely manageable. I think that even with my own business, a lot started going on too. I started taking on other projects and kind of like what we were talking about, you do have to prioritize like even your projects, the things that you want in your life, because you can't do it all at once. Like if I decide to pick up the book again, it's like, okay, don't work on the online course. Don't do this because those hours I'm putting into that, I call that like my side business because my full business is just being with clients. And so writing a book would have to take part instead of that. It would just have to take over.
Well, and that's a really important thing to touch on too, is that when you're saying yes to something, you're saying no to something else. Yeah. And it's very important that you recognize what is it that you're saying no to when you're saying yes to this, because you do have to prioritize things and you can't do all the things because that's when you burn out, right? And we live in seasons. Like we are cyclical beings, right? Like we think that we're not, but we are. Like if you just look at, there's seasons, right? There's like spring, summer, fall, winter. There's like this up and down. Look at the sun. The sun sets, the sun rises, the sun sets, the sun. So we are cyclical, whether we want to admit it or not, which means that our businesses really are cyclical. Our energies are cyclical. So we shouldn't be thinking that we're going to just go in to like January, right? Like January 1st, and we're going to accomplish all these things in January. And it's like, I was reading something sent to me not that long ago about how when you build a house, you can't start throwing furniture in a house before you start laying the blocks. You have to lay the foundation, lay the blocks, add the roof, put up the drywall. There's an order and a sequence of events. And sometimes we just want to like start throwing things and see what sticks. And that's just a recipe for overwhelm, and it's not going to go well for you. And I'm saying this because I need to hear it as much, because I'm notorious for wanting to get things done and get them done fast and do it really like every single day I sit down to do stuff and I will do a lot. And I'm like, man, I got nothing done. And it's because, I didn't do in a day what will take a month realistically to do, you know?
No, I'm the same way. There was something on Instagram that someone posted. I think it was the Boss Babes account. And they said, every day I come up with a new idea and I think it's going to go live by night. And it's like, and I drive my fiance crazy. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have a winery. I'm going to do this. Like I have all these plans. And after this call, I'm probably going to be like, I'm going to start my book again. He's going to be like, oh my gosh.
I think that we're like BFFs in another life here, because honestly, we're too much alike. My husband's like, he says the same thing to me. He's like, oh, here's another idea.
Yeah. And he is very supportive, but he makes fun of it too. He's like, remember, you like to take on a lot. Is this the one thing that you want to do? And I'm like, yes.
That's so funny. And I thank God for supportive men, because really like so many of them could be like, this girl's crazy, I'm out.
Right? I think and I'm not sure what your husband is like, but mine is just very like calm. He's more centered. He has a 9 to 5. I've never worked for anyone for 14 years. So I'm just like all over the place. I do all the things for my business. But it's nice, I think, to have one that's a little more like calm and centered in me. I'm like, let's do this, let's do that. Even in our relationship, it's like that. I come up
Yeah.
with all the ideas.
It's funny that, and I think that that's like the healthy dynamic. My husband is very much like that,
Oh,
very, very, he's like the quiet, silent type, very,
love.
just calm and a calming presence. And he really is not, he's not entrepreneurial minded like I am. Like you said, I have all the ideas and I don't want to work for anyone else. Although I have to tell you offline, but I had a really crazy thing happen to me yesterday that made me think, well, maybe
Oh,
I should
oh,
go work for someone. But I'll tell you that story in
yeah.
another later. But he's been working. Yeah, he works a 9 to 5. Well, not a 9 to 5. He works in the baseball world. So, and that's like all he's ever done. His eyes are fixed on baseball. That's the only thing he wants to do with his life. And I'm like, I don't know how you can do it.
I
I can
know,
never.
right?
Yeah.
That is awesome. I could take up all your time and I'm not going to. So, where can we find you? Where can we find you online?
Okay, so I encourage because I really think that writing is just such a healing modality and something that we should all be doing. I invite you all to join my free I have a free challenge that I did and it's on Evergreen now, so it's just like you can join at any time, and it's at the journalingcollective.com/awaken. All right, and I just make sure that that's the right URL. But I put together a challenge, and it's intended to just kind of like, you'll get an email a day, and it just walks you through different ways that you can heal through writing. So I think you'll really, really enjoy that. So it's journalingcollective.com/awaken.
That's really beautiful. And I'm going to have, if you're listening, click in the show notes. There will be a link that will take you directly there. And are you on Instagram as well?
I am. You can find me I'm pretty much Campins-Adams anywhere you go for the most part. So Facebook, Campins-Adams, friend me, feel free to send me a friend request and DM me, let me know that, you listen to the podcast. I always like to connect with listeners and people reading my stuff. Kind of makes it feel not so lonely and like you're not just talking into a void. People are actually listening on me. It's always so great when I get email replies. I'm like, oh, somebody wrote the
I
email.
know, right? And people like DM you on Instagram and stuff. It feels good. So if you're listening and maybe you don't have a story that you want to write, but you're in a time of your life where you're trying to heal from something, you want to go through a journaling process, Camille is here to help you. So you can connect with her online and she can help you in many different ways to go through that. So I want to thank you so much for your time today. Lots of great information. I think this is a good place to start, is listening to this podcast, get inspired, write something right now that maybe you have an idea that sparked when you were listening, and share it with us in the comments. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
My favorite part of this conversation is how much knowledge and passion she has for writing and helping others. The part that really stood out for me is that if I dedicate 5 hours a week, I can finish about one chapter a week, which means that my first messy draft could be done within months. And I think I'm going to get started this holiday season because I'm taking a few weeks off. I also really liked how Camille opened up about moving her business back to one-on-one coaching. I just had a conversation yesterday with a few other business owners where we talked about, why do we stay stuck in a business that doesn't light us up anymore, or a project or collaboration that isn't even bringing us joy, that we don't even want to work on? When you decide to be your own business owner, you do it for a reason. You get to be in charge of where you go and what you do. But it's almost like a bad relationship. It's like we think we put this money and this time into it already, and we think somehow we can fix it. But sometimes it's just better to let it go. The sooner that you do let go of what isn't working for you anymore, the sooner you get to what really matters and what you really want to work on most. And it opens so many doors of opportunity. That's a whole other conversation, but that's what came up for me as I was talking to Camille. I want to thank you so much for spending time with me today. If you could take a pause and give the Closet Edit podcast a 5-star review, I would truly appreciate it. And we can continue growing this community and reaching more people. I'd love to hear your takeaways also from this episode when you do leave your reviews, and I would love to share them on the podcast. Continue building a life and style that truly reflect you. I will catch you next time.